The sun shone brightly over Washington, D.C., reflecting off the towering glass windows of the FBI headquarters. Inside, agents rushed from one place to another, carrying folders, briefcases, and important documents. The air buzzed with hurried conversations and the clicking of polished shoes against the marble floors. It was just another day at the FBI, structured, busy, and filled with routine operations. Then, something unusual happened. A dog appeared at the entrance. He wasn't just any dog. His fur, once white, was now covered in dirt, and he looked thin, as if he had been wandering the streets for a long time. But despite his rough condition, he carried himself with a purpose. He wasn't lost or confused. He knew exactly where he was going. He stopped in front of the large glass doors of the FBI headquarters and began to bark. It wasn't an aggressive bark, nor was it random noise. It was persistent, urgent, as if he was trying to communicate something important. At first, no one paid him much attention. Some agents glanced at him briefly before continuing their tasks. After all, it was just a stray dog. Maybe he was hungry or looking for shelter. But the dog, later known as Buddy, did not give up. He kept barking, looking around with his tired eyes, searching for someone who would understand him. His body, weak from exhaustion, stood firm. His message was clear: he needed help. Among the many agents walking past, one person stopped. Lucy Taylor, a young FBI agent, was heading out for a quick coffee break when she heard the barking. Something about it felt different. When she looked at the dog, she felt an unexplainable connection. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, it was as if he was speaking directly to her. She walked towards him cautiously, not wanting to scare him. "Hey there, Buddy," she said softly. "What are you doing here?" Buddy stopped barking and watched her closely. His breathing was heavy, and she could see just how tired he was. His ribs were visible under his dirty fur. This dog had traveled a long way. Feeling a sense of sympathy, Lucy reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small bottle of water. She poured some into the cap and placed it in front of Buddy. The dog hesitated for only a second before drinking eagerly. He was extremely thirsty. Lucy smiled as she watched him. There was something special about this dog. He wasn't just here by accident. When he finished drinking, Buddy did something unexpected. He gently grabbed the sleeve of Lucy's jacket with his teeth and started to tug. She frowned in confusion. "You want me to follow you?" she asked, though she knew he wouldn't respond in words. Buddy tugged again, more insistently this time. Lucy hesitated. She looked around, hoping someone else had noticed this unusual situation. But the other agents were too busy with their work. Only one person, Michael Daniels, the division leader, seemed to be paying attention. "Torres," he called out, his voice firm. "What are you doing?" Lucy straightened, realizing she might look foolish for paying so much attention to a stray dog. "This dog," she started, searching for the right words. "He's acting strange. It's like he's trying to tell us something." Michael sighed, already frustrated. "It's just a dog, Torres. We don't have time for this. Get back inside." Lucy glanced down at Buddy. His eyes, full of desperation, pleaded with her. He needed her to trust him. Taking a deep breath, she made a decision. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, standing her ground. "But I need to see where he wants to take me. If I'm wrong, I'll take full responsibility." Before Michael could argue, Buddy started moving, and Lucy followed without hesitation. Michael shook his head in irritation. "She's going to regret this," he muttered to Ryan Edwards, the team's technical analyst. Ryan adjusted his glasses, watching Buddy carefully. "I don't know, boss. That dog, he doesn't seem lost. He knows exactly where he's going." Michael scoffed but couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in his gut. Something about this situation was unusual. The dog wasn't acting like a stray looking for food. He was leading Lucy somewhere specific. Finally, with a deep sigh, Michael turned to Ryan. "Fine," he said. "We'll follow them. But if this is a waste of time, Torres will be hearing from me." Ryan nodded, and together, they started walking behind Lucy and Buddy, keeping a safe distance. As they moved through the city streets, Michael observed the dog closely. He wasn't wandering aimlessly. Every step he took was deliberate. He glanced back occasionally, making sure Lucy was still with him. It was as if he knew something important awaited them at the end of their journey. Michael wasn't the type to believe in coincidences, but the longer they followed Buddy, the more uneasy he felt. Ryan, walking beside him, finally spoke. "Don't you think this is a little strange, boss?" Michael didn't answer right away. He wanted to dismiss the thought, but he couldn't. Instead, he muttered, "It's just a dog." But deep down, he wasn't so sure anymore. As Buddy led them away from the busy streets and into quieter, more deserted areas, the air around them seemed to change. The buildings became older, the roads less traveled. A sense of anticipation built inside Lucy. She didn't know where Buddy was taking them, but she had no doubt in her mind that it was important. Michael and Ryan exchanged glances. They had stepped into something unknown, something unexpected. And yet, neither of them turned back. The journey was just beginning. Buddy continued moving forward with determined steps, leading Lucy through the quieter streets of the city. The once busy surroundings of the FBI headquarters were long behind them. The roads grew narrower, and the buildings looked older, some with graffiti-covered walls and broken windows. The atmosphere changed, carrying a sense of mystery and quiet urgency. Lucy glanced back to see Michael and Ryan following at a cautious distance. Michael's skeptical expression hadn't changed, but he was still there. That meant something. Buddy suddenly stopped at a street corner, sniffing the air before glancing at Lucy, his dark eyes filled with meaning. It was as if he was waiting for her confirmation. "All right, Buddy," Lucy murmured, crouching down to his level. "Where to next?" Buddy let out a short, decisive bark before moving again, this time down a narrow alleyway. The buildings on either side towered over them, casting deep shadows that made the path feel more enclosed. The faint sound of distant traffic barely reached them now. It was quiet, too quiet. Michael sighed as he followed. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "We're following a stray dog through backstreets like he's some kind of secret informant." Ryan, however, seemed intrigued. Adjusting his glasses, he observed Buddy closely. "You have to admit, boss, this is unlike anything we've seen. That dog isn't lost. He's leading us somewhere specific." Michael didn't respond, but his jaw tightened as he continued walking. The further they went, the more Lucy felt an odd sense of anticipation. Something was waiting for them, she could feel it. Buddy moved quickly now, as if the urgency had increased. He led them down another narrow passage until they reached an old, rusted gate. The gate was slightly ajar, creaking as the wind pushed against it. Buddy stopped and sat down, looking up at Lucy expectantly. "This is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Buddy barked once, firm and confident. Michael finally caught up, folding his arms. "And what exactly is this, Torres?" Lucy ignored the sarcasm and stepped forward cautiously. She pushed the gate open, revealing a path leading to a large abandoned warehouse. The building was old, its walls rusted and covered in patches of peeling paint. Broken windows lined the upper floors, and vines crept up its sides, as if trying to reclaim the structure. Ryan scanned the area, his analytical mind kicking in. "This place isn't just abandoned," he murmured. "It's been used recently." Michael raised an eyebrow. "How can you tell?" Ryan pointed at the ground. "Fresh tire tracks. Someone's been driving in and out of here. And look, those footprints in the dirt? They're recent too." Lucy's heart pounded. Something about this place felt off. Buddy had led them here for a reason, and she was determined to find out why. Michael sighed heavily. "Fine. We check it out. But if this turns out to be nothing, Torres, you're explaining why we wasted an entire afternoon on a dog's hunch." Lucy nodded, gripping her FBI-issued flashlight. "Understood." She stepped forward, and Buddy immediately followed, his ears perked, his stance alert. He wasn't just leading them anymore, he was guarding them. The entrance to the warehouse was a large sliding door, rusted from years of exposure. Lucy pressed her shoulder against it and pushed. It groaned loudly as it moved, revealing the darkness inside. A musty metallic scent filled the air, and as the light from the outside seeped in, Lucy's breath caught in her throat. Rows of cages filled the warehouse, stacked on top of each other. Some were empty, while others contained animals, dogs, mostly, too weak to even stand. Their fur was matted, their ribs painfully visible beneath their skin. Low whimpers echoed through the space, filling it with a heart-wrenching sorrow. "Oh my God," Lucy whispered, stepping inside. Ryan and Michael followed, their expressions darkening as they took in the sight before them. Ryan pulled out his phone, immediately snapping photos. "This isn't just an old warehouse," he said grimly. "This is an illegal animal trafficking operation." Michael ran a hand through his hair, his frustration shifting into something more serious. "This is bigger than I thought." Buddy walked past them, stopping at one of the cages. He placed his paw against the bars, whimpering softly. Inside, a group of puppies huddled together, their eyes wide with fear. Lucy clenched her fists. "We have to do something." Michael nodded, pulling out his radio. "This is Agent Daniels. We need backup. We've found something major." As he relayed the information, a sudden noise broke through the silence. A loud metallic creak from the far side of the warehouse. Lucy froze. Someone else was here. Michael drew his weapon, motioning for the others to stay low. Ryan quickly crouched behind a crate while Lucy instinctively placed a protective hand on Buddy, though the dog showed no signs of fear. Then, from the shadows, two figures emerged. They were men, armed, and clearly not expecting visitors. Their eyes widened when they saw the FBI agents, and without hesitation, one of them raised his weapon. A gunshot rang out. Lucy and the others dove for cover behind stacks of cages and crates. The dogs inside whimpered and barked, frightened by the sudden chaos. Michael returned fire, his face set in a hardened expression. Buddy, however, didn't cower. The moment one of the men tried to sneak around the side, Buddy lunged. His sharp teeth sank into the man's arm, forcing him to cry out and drop his weapon. Lucy took her chance. She tackled the man to the ground, swiftly kicking his gun away and pinning him down. "Good boy," she whispered breathlessly to Buddy as she cuffed the suspect. Meanwhile, Michael and Ryan managed to subdue the second man. Within minutes, the threat was neutralized. Michael exhaled sharply, securing his gun. He glanced at Buddy, who stood proudly beside Lucy. "I take back what I said," he muttered. "That dog isn't just leading us somewhere. He's solving cases." Ryan let out a nervous chuckle, still catching his breath. "Boss, I think Buddy just did more work than some of us do in a month." Lucy knelt beside Buddy, stroking his head. His tail wagged slightly, but his eyes remained focused, as if he knew the job wasn't over yet. As the sound of approaching sirens filled the air, Lucy looked around at the cages, at the terrified animals still trapped inside. This was only the beginning. And Buddy, he had just proved that he was far more than a stray dog. He was a hero. The sirens blared in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Lucy took a deep breath, her heart still pounding from the confrontation. She glanced down at Buddy, who stood beside her, his tail still, his ears perked up, and his eyes scanning the warehouse. Even though the immediate danger had passed, he remained alert, as if he knew there was still more to be uncovered. Michael lowered his gun, keeping a wary eye on the two men they had subdued. "We need to secure the area before backup arrives," he said, his voice firm but steady. "Ryan, see if you can find anything useful on those computers or documents. Lucy, check the cages and make sure these animals are stable." Lucy nodded and hurried over to the closest set of cages. The sight was heartbreaking. Dogs of all breeds and sizes, some too weak to move, others huddled together for warmth and comfort. Their eyes, filled with fear and confusion, watched her every move. "Hang in there, guys," she whispered, reaching for the lock on one of the cages. It was rusted but gave way after a few tries. The moment the door swung open, the dogs inside hesitated before stepping out cautiously. Lucy crouched low, extending her hand. "You're safe now," she reassured them softly. Buddy, as if understanding her intentions, approached the freed dogs with a calm demeanor. His presence seemed to reassure them, and soon, they began wagging their tails slightly, responding to his silent communication. Meanwhile, Ryan worked quickly, pulling open a drawer in a rusted metal desk. Inside, he found stacks of papers and old notebooks filled with scribbled notes. His eyes widened as he flipped through the pages. "Boss," he called out to Michael. You might want to see this. Michael walked over, taking one of the notebooks and scanning its contents. These are transport logs, he muttered, his eyes narrowing. Dates, locations, and even contact names. He flipped another page, finding a crude map marked with red circles. This isn't just a single operation. This is a network. Ryan nodded, his face tense. Whoever's running this is moving animals across multiple states. This warehouse is just one of many. Michael clenched his jaw. We're looking at a large-scale trafficking ring, he said grimly. And we just walked into the heart of it. Just then, Buddy let out a low growl. Lucy turned in alarm, following his gaze toward a darkened corner of the warehouse. A faint shuffling sound came from behind a stack of old wooden crates. Someone's still here, Lucy whispered. Michael motioned for them to stay low as he slowly moved toward the crates, his gun raised. Ryan and Lucy followed, their bodies tense. Buddy stayed close to Lucy's side, his muscles coiled, ready to act. Michael gave a silent countdown with his fingers, 3, 2, 1, before yanking the crates aside. A man in his late 40s, wearing a dirt-stained jacket and holding a crowbar, bolted from his hiding spot, making a run for the exit. Buddy didn't hesitate. With impressive speed, he dashed forward, cutting off the man's path. The man skidded to a halt, eyes wide with fear as Buddy bared his teeth and let out a deep warning growl. "Don't move!" Michael barked, closing in with his gun aimed at the suspect. The man hesitated, his gaze darting between Buddy and the FBI agents before finally raising his hands in surrender. Ryan quickly secured him with zip ties while Lucy and Michael exchanged glances. "Looks like we found someone who knows more than he's willing to say," Michael said, his voice edged with satisfaction. He turned to the suspect. "Who are you working for?" The man said nothing, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Not feeling talkative?" Michael asked coolly. "That's fine. We'll let the interrogation team handle you. But let me tell you something, this is more than just illegal trading. We're looking at federal charges, trafficking, conspiracy, and a long list of other crimes. If you cooperate, maybe we can make things easier for you." Still, the man remained silent. But Lucy noticed something, the way his gaze kept flicking toward the desk where Ryan had found the documents. Curious, she walked over and began searching through the remaining drawers. Finally, at the bottom, she found a small, locked metal box. "Ryan, can you open this?" she asked. Ryan grabbed a small toolkit from his bag and started working on the lock. Within moments, it clicked open. Inside were stacks of money, forged transport documents, and a USB drive. Lucy held up the drive. "This might be what we need." Michael nodded. "Good work. Bag everything. We'll analyze it back at the office." The sound of tires screeching outside signaled the arrival of FBI backup. Michael turned to Lucy. "You were right to trust that dog," he admitted. "If we hadn't followed him, we never would have found this." Lucy looked down at Buddy, who was now sitting calmly by her side, his tail wagging slightly. She smiled and scratched behind his ear. "He knew," she said softly. "Somehow, he knew." As the agents moved in to take over the scene, Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. With the evidence they had found, they could take down the entire network behind the trafficking operation. But none of it would have been possible without Buddy. He wasn't just a stray anymore. He was a hero. A few days had passed since the dramatic raid at the warehouse. The news of the FBI uncovering an extensive animal trafficking ring had spread across the country. The media was filled with images of the rescued animals, the operation, and the most unexpected hero of all, Buddy. Lucy stood outside the FBI headquarters, looking up at the massive glass building reflecting the afternoon sun. Today wasn't just another day at work. Today was special. Buddy sat beside her, his fur now clean and shining, his posture proud yet calm. The once weary stray had transformed into a hero, and he seemed to know it. Lucy knelt beside him, giving him a gentle scratch behind the ears. "You ready for this, Buddy?" she whispered. Buddy wagged his tail in response. Inside the headquarters, an official ceremony had been arranged. Michael Daniels himself had approved it, and while he wasn't a fan of public recognition, even he admitted that Buddy deserved it. As Lucy and Buddy entered the hall, she noticed a crowd gathered. Fellow agents, journalists, and animal rescue organizations had come to witness the event. Cameras flashed as soon as they walked in, and a murmur of excitement filled the room. Michael stood at the front, dressed in his usual crisp suit, waiting for them. When Lucy and Buddy reached the stage, he cleared his throat and stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying authority yet a newfound warmth, "we are gathered here today to celebrate not just a successful operation, but the remarkable actions of an unlikely hero." He turned toward Buddy, who sat attentively, as if he understood every word. "This dog," Michael continued, "led us to something we would have never found on our own. He showed determination, intelligence, and bravery that many of us, myself included, would have dismissed. And because of his instincts, countless animals were saved, and a criminal operation was dismantled." The audience erupted into applause. Lucy felt a lump in her throat as she looked down at Buddy, who wagged his tail in response. Michael gestured to an agent standing nearby, who stepped forward holding a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a gleaming golden medal attached to a blue ribbon. The words "Heroism and Service" were engraved on it. "Buddy," Michael said, kneeling down to gently place the medal around the dog's neck, "you are an honorary FBI agent." The room erupted into cheers and laughter as Buddy wagged his tail proudly. Even Michael, who rarely showed emotion, couldn't help but smile as he patted Buddy's head. Lucy crouched beside him, whispering, "You earned this, Buddy." After the ceremony, the agents and guests gathered around to congratulate Lucy and Buddy. Journalists asked questions, cameras flashed, and people lined up to take pictures with the now-famous hero dog. Michael approached Lucy with a rare look of approval. "You were right to trust him," he admitted. "I won't doubt your instincts again." Lucy smiled. "Thank you, sir. But really, all the credit goes to him." Michael smirked. "Well, he can't exactly file a report, so you'll have to take care of that." Ryan, who had been standing nearby, chuckled. "I'll help with that. But first, I think Buddy deserves a real reward." As if on cue, another agent walked up with a large bowl filled with steak pieces. Buddy's eyes widened, and he wasted no time digging in as the agents laughed. As the event wound down, Lucy realized something. Buddy was no longer just a stray looking for help. He had found his purpose. More importantly, he had found a home. Later that evening, Lucy sat on her couch, watching Buddy curl up on a soft new bed she had bought him. He looked content, peaceful. The events of the past few days had changed both of their lives. Lucy reached down, running her fingers through his soft fur. "You know, Buddy," she murmured, "you didn't just save those animals. You saved me too." Buddy opened one eye, let out a satisfied sigh, and rested his head back down. He was home. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt right.